once again, I'm Doc Rotten, and welcome to Heroes and Droids. This is our episode about Easter eggs, references, details of all kinds of goodies. This time about the Book of Boba Fett, Episode 5. I know what you're thinking. We'll get to that. All right, let me introduce the host for tonight with all the Easter eggs handy, the one and only award-winning filmmaker, Christopher G. Moore.
What's up? We're back doing all the cool Easter eggs. We're going to be totally wizard with all the references and little bits and pieces from this recent episode. But to go along this Star Tours journey, we've got some wonderful participants, including the Slat Man, Chris Slattery. How you doing, sir?
Oh, I'm flarkin' good.
Flarkin' good.
Thank you for practicing that. Yes.
Speaking of flarkin' good, we got Vanessa, podcasting rock star and international cosplay queen, and recent person who went to Disney World and the Star Wars land over there. How you doing?
Amazing. Still on a Disney Star Wars high. I hope this isn't too much of a giveaway, right?
No.
This is a spoiler episode.
That's one of the many Easter eggs.
No one will ever know.
If it makes you feel any
You'll never
better,
know.
every single article that I've seen pop up in the last 24 hours have all spoiled it, like straight up, without even putting any spoiler warning. It's just in the title. It's just
to be fair, the music at the end of last episode kind of
a bit of a
spoiled it
hint.
anyhow.
Yeah.
Yes.
And speaking of a hint, I'm hinting at the other participant in this conversation, and that's comic book artist Chad Hunt. He's as furry as a Jawa. How are you doing, sir?
Well,
What?
I'm doing good, but I had the skin knocked off my dip swap today, so I'm not.
No.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
Oh, wow.
As long as it wasn't-
That's
As
awesome.
long as it wasn't.
I'd have to
knocked off-
stand up to show you, and I'm not going to do that.
Well, don't show us your bantha diddle. But anyway, which again, all these little things are all little things throughout this episode. So I'm going to go through all of them. I got 30 or so Easter eggs.
Oh, wow. We're going to be
And
Buckle in, guys.
references and homages and a little bit of everything. So first of all, we get probably one of the more well-known quotes from The Mandalorian, the first episode of that season, where, of course, the biggest spoiler of all, Mando himself, Din Djarin, shows up, but he says his famous line, "I'm going to bring you in warm, or bring you in cold." Of course, now when he says bringing you cold, you're just going to be a head. So you're going to be a big cold head. So that's from that phrase is from the very first episode of the first season of The Mandalorian. So we get a repeat of that. Of course, it's a great way to sort of introduce his character back into this sort of side story with the Book of Boba Fett, although it's more like the Book of Din Djarin this week. Of course, if you remember the last season of the Mandalorian, we actually get to see him actually wielding the Darksaber again against people and realizing it's not as easy as the Jedis do when they're wielding it. So we get to sort of see his use, and also get to see all the jokes about if you swing it a certain way, you may cut off your leg or your hand or something. So maybe he'll be trained by some other Jedi at some point. I don't know. We'll see. Also, we get, I think probably one of the coolest things, we've been stuck on Tatooine for so long. It's kind of cool to go someplace else. And we go on sort of this, almost like what they call a Dyson sphere, these hypothetical versions of places in space, that we've seen. And my first thing is I kept expecting the Halo music to come up because it felt like an homage to Halo. Oh, I kept expecting that. But, we've seen it in Elysium. We've seen it in a lot of different
Didn't they do it in
sci-fi.
Interstellar?
Probably, yeah. And I think Ringworld, I think some of the books have something like that too. So there's been a lot of sci-fi properties, but for me, somebody who's a lifelong Halo player, I kept thinking, okay, when's Master Chief going to show up and he's going to have have a blaster battle with Din Djarin, but it didn't happen. So I felt cheated. But still, that's probably one of the coolest places I've seen in the Mandalorian universe, in my opinion. It was pretty cool. Let's see. When Din Djarin goes into the elevator, he gets an elevator with a Cascadag who was looking at him like he farted, looked away. Which we first saw a form of that alien species in Force Awakens, and we've seen him throughout some other properties as well. Actually mentioning of that whole scene, I don't know if you guys noticed. That scene where he goes in the elevator, he gets out of the elevator, goes back in the elevator, that's all one long shot. It's like 2 minutes and 15, almost 2 minutes and 15 seconds. And it's amazing. And I didn't really see any cuts anywhere. And so somehow they worked around that, the stagecraft type stuff with the background stuff, and somehow worked it out and maybe move things or did sets to where it could be like one long shot. So
wow,
kudos to the ability to pull that off in one long thing.
Yeah, I can't wait to see the shot breakdown for that, because that's going to be really cool.
I am too, because that kind of reminds me of like The Haunting of Hill House, when they had that one long shot where they had to go to different sets. And so it'd be interesting to see if they just rotated sets or they did certain things. So that was pretty amazing. Now the guildmaster that Din Djarin meets up with, that he talked to, is that Ishi-Tib, which is an alien species found in the prequels and the Clone Wars. So we get to see that. Of course, we get a lot of sort of the history around the Mandalorian people, and we finally get to see what happened during the Night of 1,000 Tears, which actually was first mentioned by Moff Gideon, and also mentioned as the Great Purge by the Mandalorians that by Paz Vizsla, actually, in one of the earlier episodes of the Mandalorian. We get to sort of see that come to life, and of course we get to see TIE bombers bombing. We get to see the dome cities of Mandalore in live action, which we got to see in Clone Wars, and then also we got to see Imperial probe droids. We also got to see some of the Imperial KX series security droids, which we saw KTSO, which is one of my favorite robots in the Star Wars universe, which was in Rogue One. So we get to see all those. And of course, if you just look at the framing and how that shot is with all the KX droids coming in with their shooting their little blasters, and it looks like a huge homage to T2 Judgment Day when we get that sort of flashback when the machines were taking over the Earth. And of course, we get to see that his Beskar spear has been turned into a tiny chainmail for Grogu. So we get to see, I'm sure we'll get to see sometime in the next season hopefully in the next season of The Mandalorian, of him giving that to Grogu. And some people online have postulated that maybe that's what saved him from if he was around when the was it Kylo Ren and one of them went in and were killing
destroyed
people.
the school,
Destroyed the skulls, but maybe that's what saved him because he was wearing Beskar armor, which we learn is, it's hard for lightsabers to cut into. But I don't know. We'll see if that plays out that way. But it'd be kind of cool to see him a little chainmail, like a little Dungeons and Dragons character. Let's see.
And didn't he mention that it was stronger than regular Beskar as well, the spear?
Well, because I said it. That's the reason that.
That was the hilt of the Darksaber.
No, the Darksaber. That's
Darksaber,
right.
yeah.
That's right.
Of course, we get Din Djarin practicing with the Darksaber, which, for those people who watch Rebels, is very similar to Kanan teaching Sabine about the use of it, even in practicing with it, and also how it weighs down the user. And like we always know with the Force, you need to become one with the Force. You also need to become one with the Darksaber. So in order for it to not be too heavy, and turn into Thor's hammer by the end of it. Let's see. When we also get to see that Din Djarin, now he does have a ship, he has to take crew, he has to take like people who have to take
public transportation.
Because their car broke down, they have to take the local bus, and of course he's got to take the Star Cruiser. One of the characters that's walking up the ramp is wearing the same coat of the range troopers from Solo that were on top of the train in Solo. So he's wearing one of the coats from them. When he has to empty all his guns, which is a nice little fun little thing, a little funny thing where he's like, it's almost like one of those things where people are taking guns out everywhere like a clown car.
Yeah.
If you noticed, well, one thing people know, if you know about Star Wars, a lot of times they use things from the real world. Evidently, that case that they put it in is actually a real world case that just spray painted it white. But a lot of the weapons they use sometimes are based on real weapons from like World War II. In fact, because Han Solo's weapon was actually an old timey weapon. The weapon he uses normally is the 1896 Bergman pistol. But for the first time, we get to see like he has this small little pistol he puts in there. That's actually a small gun that is known as the Liberator single shot pistol, which was used by European resistant fighters in World War II. They dropped those behind enemy lines and stuff so people could use them to sort of hold people up to get bigger guns. But anyway, that's it's based on, a lot of these pistols are based on World War II stuff. So that's why a lot of times they had problems when they would shoot it in other countries, because they have to make sure they could take these weaponry to those other countries. So I thought that's kind of cool how they're sort of based on real weapons sometimes, which as long as they don't shoot for real, if you know what I mean. Let's see. And of course, they're always pulling at the heartstrings because he's pining for Grogu. So we get, when the woman puts his little Grogu outfit in the little bag, he ties it up so it looks like little Grogu ears, and he even sees the little Greedo looking child who's green, so it's just making him sad for his little buddy. So I just think it's kind of funny that they made it to where he, the container looks like a little Grogu head, those big ass ears. And the funny thing is that there's a TikTok video where they always show like Leonardo DiCaprio, and he's like and they did the whole thing with like Easter eggs every time they show. And the whole scene when they're at Pelimoto's place, and there's like all these different droids. I'm sure there's one droid for those people who are probably big fans of Jedi Fallen Order, but there's a BD droid which is similar to BD-1 droid. So and even has one of his legs is kind of hurt, just like BD-1's.
That might have been my favorite part, seeing that little BD droid.
So seeing that finally in live action, not just in the video game. Of course, now everybody's thinking that what's his name? Is it Cal Estes? Is that his name?
Cal Kestis.
Cal Kestis. Now I'd be like, oh, if they have a BD droid, Cal, he better show up. But
if that's BD-1, he will.
Well, the coloring on it's a little bit different. So, but you never know. I mean, his foot's hurt, similar to that, but that might be just their little fun Easter egg.
Coincident, yeah.
Of course, we get R5D4 droid again, which we've seen in a few episodes. But if you notice, there's an overhead shot when he comes into frame, and you see he's missing a piece of the top. That's where he had the busted motivator. that now, if you want to go look up, people think that the real hero of the initial trilogy is that droid, because he did that on purpose so Luke would take another droid. So there's a whole conspiracy around that droid. But anyway, so we get to see him. Also, there's what they call a WED treadwheel repair droid, which actually was initially in New Hope, but was in one of the cut scenes, and it showed up in a few other Star Wars properties, but he's initially a New Hope droid, and so it's kind of cool seeing him in it. Of course, this episode, more than a lot of the episodes, has a lot of things for those people who are big fans of the prequels. Those people probably who grew up watching the prequels were probably giddy, because we get to see the Naboo N1 Star fighter again, one of those types of ships. The same ships, of course, they used in Phantom Menace, and Anakin used to destroy the Trade Federation ship. So we get to see sort of a variation of that, which is kind of cool. And of course, there's a family of scurriers inside the ship, which those animals were first seen when we had the special edition of New Hope, when the was it the little speeder that Luke drove through Tatooine, the Scurry is, of course, Scurry.
Land speeder.
Land speeder. I couldn't think of the name for a second. Now, at one point, Pelimoto says, when she's talking about the new ship that they're trying to build, this is faster than a Fathier. We also get a reference to the sequels. The Fathier is the horse type creatures that were on Canton Bight that were being raced. So we get sort of a reference to those creatures from The Last Jedi. So again, we
forget about those horse things.
Oh, it is what it is. They made for really cool things later on, especially in the Rise of Skywalker. Let's see. Now, she also mentions that you can drop into hyperspace without a docking ring, which is also a reference to Obi-Wan, the round docking ring he had around his Jedi Starfighter in Attack of the Clones. You don't need it anymore to go into hyperspace, which is kind of cool. And of course, for anybody who knows George Lucas, he's a big car guy, and so he's always put reference to like pod racing and the ships and stuff. A lot of times are based on his love of cars. Of course, he made the film American Graffiti, which is all about these fun cars. They turned basically an Abbey Fighter into a muscle car. It's even got the motor hanging out of it, and you can see parts with a motor. So I thought that's kind of, again, that's kind of, and for people that are giving crap about the mods and their bikes and stuff. I mean, and actually some people pointed out there's actually Ralph McQuarrie designs that actually tie into the mod vehicles as well, for those people that was like, oh, this is not in the Star Wars universe. It actually was in some of the Ralph McQuarrie drawings. So
guess what? It is now.
So
now.
So suck it.
Yeah.
Although I want one of those space Vespas. I don't know about you. Let's see. I need to get one so I can just ride around DragonCon. Now, let's see. Now, also, here's a weird little reference. When Din Djarin is working on the ship, he says higher, just a little higher. That's actually the same phrase that Lando says to Solo when he's trying to get him out of the Sarlacc pit, or falling into the Sarlacc pit. So it's a nice little teeny weeny sort of references to one of the original trilogy. Of course, one of the things we found out when we were watching, I think it was the Bad Batch, we found out the Gonk droids are batteries. So now in live action, we get to see it used as a battery. So it's these, dorky looking, walking batteries. So we get to sort of see that in live action, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, where'd they put the big USB port?
Yeah, I know. Hopefully it's got different connectors. Hopefully it's not just for Apple devices.
Right in the rumpa-dumpa.
Now, also, here's
Gas powered.
Don't ever use that phrasing ever again, by the way. Speaking of the dumper, this ties into our next reference, which is actually, it's funny how they take little pieces from Star Wars lore and they give it a reason for why it's there. If you remember in The New Hope, when they're stuck inside the trash compactor, they use this pole type thing to sort of stop it from crushing them and closing in on them, and that they find out that I think it's a cryogenic density combustion booster, which they stole off one of the Pike ships. So now we know it's a part from a ship. So now it's not just some random pole that they found in the trash compactor. Now we know what it's for. So it's sort of like when they steal parts of cars to sell it for scrap.
It's a catalytic converter. Yeah.
It's basically a catalytic converter of Star Wars. Yeah. And when I mentioned the references to the prequels, when he's trying out his new ship, he flies through Beggar's Canyon. We get to fly through some of the same things from the pod race scene, and even past what's the name of the rat?
Womp Rat. Yes.
Womp Rat. Sorry, I read it wrong. I put it Romp Rat. Womp Rat. He runs past a Womp Rat, which, of course, if we remember, was one of the things that Luke Skywalker said in New Hope. It's like, yeah, we used to shoot from a T-16s to a Harper. And he also says later when he's in the ship and when he's talking to other guys, his friend, he says, it's just like Beggar's Canyon back at home. So now we get to see this fly through Beggar's Canyon. And actually, if you pay attention, there's a shot where he flies past this thing and there's like this little ramp that goes up. And if you remember the pod race scene, they've actually have the destroyed where Anakin got pushed by Sebulba off the track onto that ramp. There's still that destroyed whatever that thing was for people not to ride up it.
Oh wow.
The barricade,
the barricade is all still destroyed. Pieces of it are still destroyed there. So, and it looks just like it did back in the day. So I thought that was kind of cool. Nice little cool reference. Also, when he gets stopped by the two X-Wing pilots, one of the younger pilot is actually Max Lloyd Jones, who is actually the guy who was the stand-in for Luke Skywalker in the Luke Skywalker, that last episode
Oh
of
wow.
Mandalorian. So that's kind of cool. Of course, we get Paul's son, Young Lee, returns as the fighter pilot from some of the previous episodes of The Mandalorian, so we get to see him again. And I kind of said this earlier, but we get to hear Wizard again, which, if you paid attention back in the prequels, when Anakin's Fred's like, "This is so Wizard, Annie," but now we get to see it sounding cooler, Wizard. And I think that's I'm going to be saying that all the time now because of that. Just didn't sound the same when this little kid's like, "It's a Wizard, Annie." Also, we get another sort of like call back to a certain moment. When he says at the very end, "I got to pay a visit to a little friend." It's similar to when Luke says, "I have a promise to keep to an old friend," when he's going to meet Yoda. And so that's kind of a nice little reference there. Now, if you pay attention to the production art in the end credits, in one of the art, the little Rhodian kid that's saying hi to Din Djarin, that kid was, or he or she was supposed to be in the scene. They had him with a pilot helmet, like Rey had, and also Luke had, and also a little X-Wing toy like Luke actually was looking at back in New Hope. So that's a nice little callback if they've done that. Let's see. Also, the production art when it comes to the meat house that they were in, it was supposed to, even though it looks now when you watch the shot, it just looks like meat. In their production art, they had it. Actually, it was supposed to be the meat of Nerfs. The infamous
Nerf
herd of Nerfs got turned into meat. Let's see. Also, when we had the fight between Paz Vizsla and Din Djarin, of course, he's using the vibro blade again. Remember, we had the introduction of that earlier in Mandalorian. Also, we got to see a live action version of one of the spinning shields.
Yes, that
from
was
the
awesome.
Clone Wars, which is cool.
like that.
They also mentioned that in order to be redeemed, you can only be redeemed by living waters of Mandalore. So I think that's almost feels like a new thing. I don't know if I'm not sure if that's actually been mentioned in anything before. So maybe that'll be sort of like the version of the nose lizard where you have to see visions or something. Let's see. Also, we learn from Pelimoto she had a relationship with a Jawa, so she had probably got it on with a Jawa, and we found out underneath those little hoods and those little bright beady eyes, they're furry. And that's something that's going to haunt my dreams until the end of time. And also just knowing that she's been getting it on with a Jawa. I don't want that in my brain matter.
And what else did she say? They had issues? Or there were issues?
They had issues. Oh, then one of the Jawas tried to hit on her. And it's like, "I'm working on myself. I don't have time." I will say, I used to really hate Pelimoto, but now she's kind of growing on me in this episode.
Oh, she's
awesome.
I hated her previously. She just felt out of place, but now I think she's getting into promote everything, at least for me.
She's great.
Yeah, she was fantastic.
Now she mentions that Jawas could find a scud and a krill pond. And these are some deep references here because Scud is actually the name of Jabba the Hutt's henchman in the 70s comics. And the krill, of course, are the blue crustacean, if you remember, on the planet Sorgon, the swamp planet, in season 1 of Mandalorian. So we get two really old reference that probably nobody really knows, and a newer reference, and which is actually the same episode that was directed by the same director.
Bryce Dallas Howard,
who did an amazing job with this episode, by the way. And also, when Mando flies by the Star Cruiser, it feels like a very homage to Superman, Superman movie.
Yeah.
And last but not least, she says when she's looking at the ship, she's like, "I know it doesn't look like much," which you remember is similar to the phrase that Han Solo tells Luke about, that it doesn't look like much.
The Millennium Falcon.
It's got it where it counts, I think she says. Yeah. But she's got, she may not look like much, but she's got it where it counts, kid, that Han Solo said back in that. So anyway, those are the 37 Easter eggs.
I can make it an even 40. I've got 3 more for you.
Well, there you go. You might see some stuff, because I know there's also there's stuff I didn't mention that if you know, like Clone Wars and that stuff that you probably know, but yeah, give us some more.
Okay, so I'm going to start with that one that you nice segue. It's funny that the armor mentions that if she wasn't on Concordia when the Night of 1,000 Tier or whatever it is, the Great Purge happened, then she wouldn't have been she wouldn't have survived. It's hinting that she was a part of Death Watch on Concordia, and Death Watch was a were the Mandalorians that aligned with Darth Maul in Clone Wars, hence the little horns on her helmet. Death Watch Darth Maul. So it's not really a reference or an Easter egg, but just more of like a connecting a lot of dots. This next one is more of an Easter egg or a reference. With when Din Djarin is talking about the lightsaber getting heavy, that's kind of a reference to George Lucas's original thought process for the lightsabers, because originally he was going to have them be like, oh, they're like heavy, dense material, so you need to have both hands on the hilt at all times, and you can't do like full swings and stuff. It has to be, it's good. It's like you're holding like a 100-pound like sword or something. That was his original thought process. But then by the time the prequels came along, they had already established that no, it's a weightless blade, and it actually takes like a lot of or more modern lightsabers, I guess is a better way to put it, are weightless blades of pure energy, and that's why they're so difficult to wield. It's because it doesn't feel like you're holding anything at all other than the hilt. So that was I thought it was a kind of an interesting reference. And then the most interesting reference is that when Pelimoto is getting attacked by the Womp Rat, it kind of looks like that first scene of Jurassic Park with the Velociraptor attacking the poor the poor Jurassic Park worker. And it's just kind of funny that Bryce Dallas Howard, who is known for working on Jurassic World, added that little reference.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
There you go.
Yep. Yay! All right. Well, we went the whole episode without mentioning that Boba Fett didn't show up. But hey, we're going to do a review, and when that review, you're going to hear us talk about that. So we want you to check that out. Look for the link down below or in the list of episodes on YouTube or in Apple Podcasts. And if you would, if you want to help us out, it's easy and free to do. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, share with a friend. All things would be awesome. And of course, we'd love to hear your comments. What Easter eggs did we miss? I imagine there are plenty more.
Or which Easter eggs were your favorites?
That's even better. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. All right, well, guys, thank you all for joining me. This was incredible. I'm looking forward to doing the review.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whee! All right.
Yay!
Let's say one more time with feeling. Let's say goodnight, folks.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.